with Truth here, and it's time for more Otaku Evolution. Be sure to like, subscribe, and contribute to my Patreon. In this second part of my Mobile Fighter G Gundam review, I'd like to take a look at some of the mobile suits and concepts of the series, as well as talk briefly about the English version. Spoilers still apply, by the way. So fire up your mobile tracer system, review fight, ready, go! The mobile suit designs in G Gundam were conceived by a combination of director Yasuhiro Imagawa, Kuniya Okawara, Hajime Katoki, Kimitoshi Yamane, and apparently contest winners? No surprise there. There are some interesting and wild mecha designs in this show. Shining Gundam and God Gundam are pretty basic, but distinct enough to leave an impression. Dragon Gundam is one of the better designs for Domon's rivals/allies, and it's an obvious prototype for the later designs of the Shenlong and Ultron Gundams in Gundam Wing. If you want to go a bit more wild though, you of course have Neo Mexico's Tequila Gundam, which is just special. And we can hardly forget the fantastic Nether Gundam, which is a fucking windmill! I'm sorry, were you looking for war themes and political intrigue in your Gundam show? I can't hear you over the sound of this fucking windmill mecha! Folks, G Gundam is about a fanciful fighting tournament between stereotypes. If you can't enjoy things like a windmill-shaped Gundam, maybe check your pulse to see if you're still alive. The mecha designs in G Gundam are crazy and silly, but they absolutely fit the mood and grandeur of the series. I thought they were dumb and pointless back in the day, but as I get older, the more I want to embrace their absurdity, and the absurdity of the show overall.
Even though I may have been fired by George, I still shouldn't have left my master's side.
Master George!
But I think the most interesting mecha design in G Gundam is the enormous Devil Gundam, or Dark Gundam if you're watching the English version. It is a real behemoth, a colossal, intimidating threat. It looks kind of weird, but when you learn what it can actually do, it's difficult not to be impressed. You see, when the Ultimate Gundam crashed on Earth, it malfunctioned and became the Devil Gundam, which uses its abilities to self-repair and replicate its DG cells to take control of people. The DG cells are nanomachines that repair damage done to their host unless completely obliterated, and the ultimate host, of course, is the Devil Gundam itself. Originally, the Devil Gundam was created to heal the damage done to Earth in the Gundam fights, but made its own decision to get rid of humanity on the planet to prevent humans from further damaging nature. Now, as Domon argues when he has his final showdown with Master Asia, humanity is part of the same nature as everything else on Earth, so Master, and by extension the Devil Gundam's occupation with destroying mankind, is ultimately unhelpful. But I totally understand their perspective. And given that the Gundam fights presumably continue after the end of the series, maybe having a machine like the Devil Gundam to repair parts of nature isn't such a bad idea on the whole, just as long as it doesn't target humans for annihilation. And the applications for the DG cells are nearly endless. Think of the medical use alone. I tell you, nanomachines.
Nanomachines, son!
Let's talk a bit about the Gundam fight itself, because much like the Ultimate Gundam and the DG cells, it's not necessarily a bad idea. Look at the situation the world is in right now, with wars lighting up the planet because some leaders are champing at the bit to grab more power. I don't like to inject a lot of real-world politics into my videos, but I'm sure you can figure out what country I'm talking about invading another country, because the former's leader is a megalomaniac. Now imagine we could settle all our wars in what amounts to the Olympics. Sure, there'd still be power-mad psychopaths like Wong or Alube, but their madness would be mitigated by the fact that the Gundam fight is held every few years, giving another nation a chance to take control. I could foresee other issues, though. Rather than a conventional arms race, there'd be one involving these giant robots. And who's to say there wouldn't be one nation whose technological advances wouldn't lead to a monopoly of political power due to successive wins in the Gundam fight? Then what? Term limits? And of course you have to consider, as the show does, environmental harm. But surely you could hold the tournament more safely in a neutral space colony, or in a tournament fairgrounds on the surface of Earth away from nature. It's just something worth considering is all I'm saying. After all, doesn't it beat having full-on wars?
I think we've learned of the many problems surrounding the Gundam Fight. However, if we know what the problems are, that should mean it's possible to fix them.
After all, we humans are a race that cannot seem to live without battle.
And a race that's battling to win hope for the future, as those youngsters have just shown us.
Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, but these kinds of things weigh on me recently. And to think, I picked G Gundam to cheer up. Honestly though, it's pretty cheery compared to some other Gundam entries, I'll give it that. Let's look at something a little happier. G Gundam's romance. That is, the romance between protagonists Domon Kashu and Rain Mikamura. It's not immediately obvious that this was the direction they were going with these two, and Imagawa has admitted that he's not very good at romances, but when the relationship really kicks in about halfway through the series, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more complicated, well-developed romantic plotline in a Gundam series. Not that that's saying much. Domon often has difficulty expressing his feelings outside of combat, so it's not easy for him to show his gratitude to Rain, or his interest in her. But you see bits of it when she's in danger, and later on when her competence flourishes, you see more of it peeking out. It's in the finale of the story that Domon truly realizes how important Rain is to him. In fact, his anguished admission is pretty much the climax of the entire series, leading directly to the defeat of the Devil Gundam, which had her in its thrall. It's one of the most memorable scenes in Gundam history, and, well...
I love you! I want to be with you! Rain!
Domon!
Rain!
Domon!
Rain!
Domon, I'm so sorry.
Can we talk about the English dub of G Gundam now? Just briefly, I promise. I want to get more into it during the mid-year video. I've never understood the popularity of the G Gundam English dub. Maybe it's nostalgia for the days of Toonami that makes it so beloved. I personally don't hear what others are hearing. I find it kind of awkward and stilted. The scene I mentioned before, for instance, I just don't get the emotion intended from the English version. I find that the Japanese version of the series has more power to it, more gravitas. Maybe I just don't like Blue Water dubs much. Apparently Domon's voice actor is an orthopedic surgeon now, and maybe that's for the best. But I did always like Carol Ann Day.
Quite a feast.
Now, everyone dig in, 'cause I'm sure gonna...
You're a real character, you know that?
I'm really surprised to hear that coming from you.
Hey, Domon, I got an awful big urge to rumble with this kid. Do you mind?
Hey, it's not my style to pick a fight with little girls who've got no table manners.
Well, wait till you're done eating.
But I wouldn't want to turn my back on you.
Well, look who's talking. Here's a baby boy and he's calling me little?
Anyway, G Gundam is a delight. It's probably not as sophisticated plot or character-wise as some of the better Universal Century entries in the franchise, but it's certainly more fun and leaves a bigger impression than some of the more overwrought recent AU shows. I know Imagawa doesn't do sequels to his works, but I wouldn't mind seeing the 14th Gundam fight the end of the show promises. Sometimes you just want to let yourself have fun, people. With all the terrible things going on in the world, you need to treat yourself. G Gundam is certain to treat you just right. Maybe it isn't genius. It doesn't have to be. It's just a plain good viewing experience. Watch it.
Power! Its burning grip tells me to defeat you! Take this! My love, my anger, and all of my sorrow! Shining Finger Sword! Go! Go! Go!
Corrado! Listen, never play little tricks like this on me again!
Was that enough? I feel like I should have included something else. Ah, well, I'm still getting back into the swing of things. Next time on Otaku Evolution, I attempt to sneak by TMS to cover a franchise I've spoken on a couple of times before. Until then, see ya! And speaking of the Devil Gundam and DG cells, we need to get a similar setup started on the Mark II. I mean, Penguisha. The Penguin Union citizens count on those social programs. They help the underprivileged, underemployed, and disabled. But yeah, it might be tricky to start a separate DG system on Penguisha. We might have to bring in the Science Academy's tech division. They're students, but they're bright. Anyway, I can't do much myself. Remember, I'm being grounded by the council for the, lithos thing. Mistakes were made, to be sure, but I did get the Penguin Liberation Army a place to put the Mark II. I mean, Penguisha. Anyway, do you think you can call up Professor Jennings and see if she can consult with the students? You don't think we'll be at war soon, do you? How depressing. I'm going to go take a nap. It's not a contest, Pen Pen.